John and I were in the United States all of March and April. We were there for 2 months, campaigning around the whole entire country. We did 60 events around the United States. And it was, encouraging to see support from, all walks of life in the US. We went to a bunch of flyover states, Oklahoma, Nebraska, as well as these sort of East Coast places like New York and LA and these sort of San Francisco, those coastal cities as well. While we were there, some progressive members of the US Congress joined together to send a letter to the Garland Department of Justice, which is a pretty big step. There hasn't been a group in Congress that has put their names to paper calling for this to be dropped. So that was very encouraging. And that was on the 4th anniversary of Julian's imprisonment, the 11th of April.
So particularly among ordinary people, do you get the sense that there's a growing awareness of the implications of this case for the First Amendment, free speech?
Yeah, certainly is. And really, what we've done in a sort of grassroots way is, not rely on the mainstream media, to go to the people, talk to them about this case, talk to them about what's actually at stake in Julian's case, because the waters have become so muddied over the years that there's so much confusion around this. And once people actually understand what's at stake and what's happening to Julian, not only are they compassionate to his personal circumstance, but they see that this is an attack on their rights, on their First Amendment rights, and their press freedom rights, and they're essential to democracy.
And I mean, you've been out of Australia for a period. Do you sense that there's a shift now? I mean, there was that Sydney Morning Herald readers poll. What was it? 79% of
79%, yeah. And the question was a really good question. It was, should Biden drop the charges? It wasn't should the Australian government intervene. It wasn't, it's should Biden drop the charges. And it's 79%, which is, I think, just shows how educated the Australian public is on this case now. So really, Australia is one of the leaders in this now, and it's come from the people. It's not a top-down thing. It's come from all these people here who are, have been working so hard over the last many years to really communicate what's happening to Julian and what's at stake in this case. And just yesterday we were in Parliament, a parliamentary friends group meeting, and it was standing room only. There were over 30 parliamentarians there, even when Senate estimates was on, and we had Liberal, Labor, Greens, Independents, every single politician from the spectrum, all the Teals were there, every single member from the Teal group was in attendance. So it's I think a real point, a pressure point that can really be used to push Julian's case for his freedom.
I mean, obviously there's the statements of Albanese and others. We did note that he wouldn't meet with Stella.
Yeah, so I think it's a missed opportunity for the Prime Minister, a missed opportunity to show that he actually cares about Julian or cares about his human rights, and a missed opportunity for the Prime Minister to show some compassion and humanity.
Do you have concerns about what this quiet diplomacy actually consists of, how it's progressing?
I think we really need to keep demanding that what the government is saying they are doing, that they're actually doing. And I don't think we can sit back and put our hands up and say we can rely on the government, because really, I believe, that this is going to come from the ground up. It's not going to come from the top down, and that's the reason the government is doing these things, because there's a demand from us, from Australians, and that's why they're acting. And that demand needs to keep being pushed up into the government. So, we can't stop. We can't let them just say, "Oh, we're doing something." We have to keep letting them know that this is what needs to happen.
Well, that was the experience with David Hicks, wasn't it?
Exactly, and it became an issue where they lose votes, and that's when the situation changed. And so, I did a you know, I said there are some politicians who are principled, right? Like they are out there, but they also need votes. Otherwise, they don't get elected. So if this is a matter of them losing votes, then they will act, sure.
Just the last question. I mean, obviously this was called when the Quad was going to be held in Sydney. I know there's talk about, leveraging the special relationship with the US and everything else, but I mean, there's also moves towards new wars, what's taking place against Russia in Europe, but also the drive to war against China in this region. You see a relationship between that and the growing sort of attacks on press freedom, increasing national security prosecutions, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I guess, in times of war and this is when press freedom matters the most. This is when people, it's not just deciding on, whether we have food on the table or things like that. It's, life and death, sending our children to a foreign country to fight, in a war that might not be in our interest. And that's when press freedom really matters the most. And that's why Julian should be free, because we need, particularly at a time when we're entering into this 30+ year commitment with the UK, with the US, we need to be able to know so that we can make decisions in our own interest, in Australian interest, what's actually going on. And I think Julian's continued incarceration by our closest allies is a sort of reflection of this special relationship. Are we really an equal partner? And I think it's becoming more and more obvious as Julian's imprisonment continues and the demands from the Prime Minister are made more and more public that we're not really an equal partner in this relationship.